Hi, everyone. My name is Cherise Bunn, and I am the Director of Education here at OWHE. I'd like to announce or introduce our 2018 OE webinar series. Today we have Yulia Dennis sharing with us the basics of personal finance and salary negotiation. So she'll begin in a few minutes. I appreciate your time giving us this afternoon or this at noon hour to talk about this topic. I wanted to share a couple other opportunities with you. So the first thing is that as Director of Education, I have a few different opportunities for you to join. So one is to listen to a webinar like you are today, or if you have a topic you're really interested in, to propose a webinar, which is a great opportunity. Another thing is to write for OE. So you can write for the OE blog. We have lots of different topics that you can choose from, and it's a great chance to share your voice and kind of talk about a unique topic that suits your fancy. Another thing is to read the blog. So over the past year, we've really had a lot of great submissions to the blog, and I would encourage you to take some time to look at those. Another one is the OE Book Club. So this is something that we started this past year thanks to PSU and the great cohort of folks they have up there. And so this year we're reading two books. The one, Difficult Women, we are starting to read as a group next Monday. There is a timeline online, so you can follow that and then join us for the book chat in November. I wanted to share the upcoming OE webinars we have. So we have the one in November is Fostering Inclusive and Body Positive Culture for Students and Staff in Higher Education with Kate Walford. And then on December 4th, we have Gender 101 with Brianna Stansbury. The next thing I wanted to share is that the OE conference is coming up. So on February 1st and 2nd, we have the conference in Lincoln City, Oregon at the Salishan Resort. The conference program is currently available online, and we have some really great sessions. So with that, I'd actually like to turn it over to Yulia.
Thank you, Cherise. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much, Cherise, for the introduction, and it's been really great to work with you on this webinar. And I will say that OE is a great organization to get involved with, so I wrote an article on salary negotiations for them as well, and I used to be on the OE board as the marketing director and then also later as the business operations director. It really is a great organization, and I would highly recommend to all of you to get involved with this great professional association. They were very critical to my own career development. I definitely don't think I could have worked and done the things that I've been able to do since then without the support and the professional development they offered. So highly recommend that organization to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. We know that time is very valuable, so thank you for spending your lunch hour learning about this really important and awesome topic. So welcome to all of you. My name is Yulia Dennis, and I'm the Director for Alumni Career Services at Oregon State University's Alumni Association. I have a really strong belief in engaging what matters, and for me, this topic significantly matters. So right before this, I looked at some data on the difference between especially male and female financial gender equity, and in 2015, women earned 79.6 cents for every $1 that men earned, and then the Labor Department found that in 2016, it went slightly up, so it's great, so 82 cents per every $1. And then we're not just talking about salary negotiation, though, we're really talking about broader financial strategies and being really smart about how you approach things. And so the other thing is that, so in a 2017 study, 60% of men ranked saving for retirement as a top priority compared to 44% of women. And then we see that the trend is that men have a lot more saved up in retirement than women. So I really urge you to take these things seriously in your life, and I advocate on your behalf, and also on behalf of the future you, that not only in your like savings goals and retirement goals, but just in overall the life goals that you have, because most likely there's some kind of a financial component in your goals. So I'm here to provide information, and I'm really excited to be presenting today. So today, do feel free to ask questions anytime. So Sharice is going to moderate the discussion board, and if you have questions, feel free to post things in there, and she'll jump in and ask questions on your behalf. So do that. The tools were sent to you. I did prepare some just general information about different types of online tools that can help you with the various topics that we'll cover today. And the learning outcomes for this session are really looking at some financial management tools, specifically looking at negotiating salary. That's a really big important topic. Looking at values and why they matter, and why is it that we talk about values when we talk about financial goals, and then looking at applying at least one strategy to your goal. And what I'd like all of you to do right now is go ahead and grab a sheet of paper if you can. If there's paper around you, grab a pen. And I want you to cut that paper into 16 sections. So you can do that by folding it multiple times into 16 sections. So go ahead and do that. We will be using it later on, but I'd want you to have time to prepare it before we actually do the activity. And then the main thing that I want to share is that continuously, especially in my work, I see there's a leadership issue for women where we're so caught up trying to learn how to be confident and figuring out how to be nice, but not too nice, but not being nice enough, etc. And women spend a lot of time on that. And we see that men are learning a lot of practical skills during that time. They're not trying to build up their confidence. They're learning how to do budgeting. They're learning how to do all these other things, and that helps them then later on as they take on leadership roles. So what I want to ask you to do is just think about those practical skills that are really going to move you forward. And the things we talk about today are definitely really huge lifelong things that are crucial to any kind of success that you want to have later on. So we'll do a quick introduction into personal finance. So what you do financially matters, and I encourage you to take ownership of your finances. Don't leave your future to chance, and I think you got this. You can do it. If you need assistance, or if you want a pep talk, or if you want to talk stuff with me, I'm happy to help out. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give you specific financial advice, but I'm always happy to be a resource for you should you ever want to talk about something. The very first thing that you should look at is your expense tracking. So Mint is a perfect example of one way to track your finances, so what you're actually spending, and I use this tool. So I put in all my credit card information, my debit card, and then it actually gives me pie charts, really beautiful pie charts of where my funds are going. And I can see, okay, this percentage is going here, this is going here, and I can play around, allocate, see what's happening. It's a really good starting place, because if you don't know this, then the rest is not really possible. And I also personally use an Excel sheet for general buckets and goal setting. And so the first step is figuring out, okay, how do I know where money is going? And you can use your bank statements, you can use things like Mint.com, Excel to figure that out. So that would be the very first step to your financial goal setting. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to create a budget. So example categories are listed there. Mint can also help you create a budget. Personally, again, I use Mint to show me where my money is going, and then I use an Excel spreadsheet to actually say, okay, here's how much I'm projecting I'm going to want to spend each month on this sort of thing. And then I can adjust it as I'm seeing, okay, I'm spending less on, let's say I'm spending more on healthcare than I thought I would, or whatever it is, and just kind of modifying it a little bit. But creating a budget is going to be something that will help you understand and have a better picture of where your funds are actually going. And it's surprising to me how many people don't have a budget. They just spend without really a clear sense of where it is that they're putting their money. So very, very recommended that you have a budget in place that you can reference. And then prioritizing values. So we have some example values up there on the PowerPoint. So looking at what are your top values, and we're going to do an exercise later today to really dig deeper into this. And why do values matter? So your values should be seen in actions. And I firmly believe that actions speak louder than words. But it starts with reflecting on words and thinking about what is it that's really important to me. At the end of the day, what do I find valuable? And again, it's about taking ownership of your life. So I think that when our actions speak louder than words, that means that I or anyone can, without knowing anything about you, knowing you as a person, should be able to look at your calendar, your bank statements, and other things that you're doing, and they should know something about you and know what is really important to you. So if that's not the case, if your actions aren't lining up with the things that you believe in, then that means it's an opportunity to revisit. So like, for example, for me, there was a time where I was really struggling financially, but I knew that one of my life goals is to contribute positively to society, not just with expertise and volunteering, but also financially, because I know that that can really boost, especially in some areas, like a little bit goes a long way. And so for me, I knew, okay, I needed to revisit my values and see, okay, if this is my value, then I need to show that. And so I started donating, even though I was like, well, I don't really have the extra funds right now, but I knew it aligned with my long-term goals. And so that's what I mean by like looking at your statements, looking at your information, seeing like, okay, what does it say about me, and is it aligned with the things that are really important to me? And then this is a huge one. So there are two things I want you to take away from this resume. I do a lot of resume reviews, so there are two things I want you to take away from this webinar. The first is establish an emergency fund. The second is negotiate your salary always, no matter what. So those are the two things I want you to do. That's it, two things. The rest you can dabble in if you want, but establish an emergency fund. Ideally, you would have at least 3 months of living expenses saved up. Do this as soon as possible. And I know that all of you, just like me, we're all in various stages of our careers, or various stages of our financial planning and goal setting. But as soon as possible, try to have an emergency fund, because we never know what happens, and it's really important that a small setback doesn't totally, completely wipe out your financial stability. So many Americans don't even have $400 in their savings account currently. So that's definitely not 3 months worth of living expenses. Start small and build it up very slowly. So it can be really small, and maybe you start off with just like, like 20 bucks a month just to have something, but eventually you'll want to have it saved up. And yeah, I can't stress this one enough. For all of us, this is a really, really, really key thing to consider and try to have as much as possible. Next, we're going to talk about salary negotiation. So, okay, so emergency funds, very important. And then, so try to have an emergency fund saved up. And then salary negotiation, that's the second thing I really want you to take away from the webinar, which is do it. Always do it. So only 7% of women negotiate their first salary compared to 57% of men. And then it takes an average of eight full working years to make up that difference. And I worked with one person who actually, she didn't approach me when she got the offer, but I worked with one person. Later on, I found this out, and I was just like, no, like under no circumstances is this acceptable. So she got a promotion. She became a supervisor of her team, and they were already not paying her very much. She only got a $2,000 raise. She's doing more work, supervising the entire team she's working with, and only got $2,000 more, and then did not negotiate her salary. So unacceptable, like really unacceptable. So always negotiate your salary. And the thing about salary, and this is actually true for all things that we try to navigate in our life, is that we don't get what we deserve. You get what you negotiate. You get what you ask for and what you're willing to have a conversation about. So if you're not willing to have a conversation about it, it's not going to happen. So for an employer, they want to pay you as little as possible. That's it. That's their goal. And so it's up to you to advocate. I will help each and every one of you with your salary negotiation. So if you want that assistance, if you want someone just to say go for it, or if you want to talk through some strategies, I'm always open to doing a short call or doing an email conversation and helping you figure this out. So do please reach out to me for help with this. And for salary negotiation, remember that the formal negotiation doesn't start until an offer is made. And try not to give the first number first. Try to have them give you a number. Ask to have time. Don't say yes right away. And then give yourself time to think through it. So some tips. Salary negotiation is about what you bring to the company. It's not about personal things. So if you have like childcare, if you're not needing to buy a house, or if the commute's longer, none of those things are relevant. What's relevant is what you're going to contribute to the organization. It's best to use something like Glassdoor to look up median pay, and you can do that for any position. And I found that to be a pretty accurate tool. And the best advice I've heard is to give. So let's say you get an X number, and then you look up what the median pay is. You give a range that's with slightly higher than what they offered you, and then up to 20% above the median pay. And then you would talk about the experience that you bring that would further their mission, their goals, etc. And that's gonna show people, okay, here's what I'm gonna bring to you, and it's not gonna be based on your personal desires or needs or goals or anything like that. It's just gonna be strictly a business transaction. I'm gonna provide you all these things, and here's the salary that, based on research, here's the salary that I found that's gonna compensate me. And so far, almost everyone that I've worked with who has asked for a higher salary has received it. The average increase in salary when you do negotiate is 7%. That's the average. And in many cases, it's more. Like I worked with one woman, she was able to, because she asked, she was able to negotiate 15% increase, a different position title, and their company offered 2 weeks vacation time initially, and then after you work a year, you get 3 weeks off. She was able to negotiate starting with those 3 weeks right off the bat. So there's lots of other things you can negotiate when you're doing your salary negotiation. Another thing you can negotiate is professional development. So for me, I always say, here's some classes I want to attend, which ones can you pay for? And then they'll say, okay, I can pay for this and this and this or whatever. Or for example, if you have technology needs, like, okay, I'm going to be traveling, I'd like to have like a new laptop or an iPad or something. Those are also things. Things like parking passes can also be negotiated. There's a variety of other things that you can talk through with the salary negotiation. And what I recommend doing is when you get an offer, you say, thank you so much for the offer. I need a couple days to think about it. You think about it, you come back saying, research shows that people with my experience and in this position make X number. You give a range, so it'll be slightly above what they're giving you and up to 20% of the median. Then they come back with a number. Then you say, great, thank you. Is there an opportunity to negotiate that more? Is that the final pay? They'll come back and say if there is or isn't. And then that's the opportunity for you to negotiate the rest of the benefits. So vacations, conferences, etc. And then always, showing enthusiasm, but kind of playing it cool, like, yeah, like I like you, I'm excited for the position, but I really need to make sure I get a good salary that compensates the work that I'm going to do for you. So those are my recommendations on the salary tips. Charisse, any questions from the discussion board right now?
Not yet.
Okay, great. So keep moving forward. So the next one is debt management. So this one, it's one that really is a personal thing because all of us have various different kinds of debt. Ideally, you'd want to pay off the highest interest debt first, and then having a plan. So like for me, I like to do things in like 5-year increments. That way it's like long-term, but not too long-term. And so I look at like, okay, in 5 years, what are the things that I'd want ideally to be paid off to what percentage? And then base my like payment plan on those percentages. And I keep all of this information in my Excel budget sheet as well. So I combine the two. And then of course, trying to have that that emergency fund in place as well. So it's a give and take with these things, and for you it's going to depend on like how high your interest is and which thing, what makes the most sense to and where does it make sense to put things. So like one of my values is having strong savings, just because like we never know what happens in life. And so I have chosen in some cases to do less debt management and more savings. And then sometimes I switch if, let's say, like I get a loan and it's a higher percentage, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on that loan for a little bit until that one is in what I consider to be a healthier stage. So you can look at different kinds of different things and like figure out what makes the most sense. And for this one too, you can definitely talk to like your bank or a financial advisor to look at the fine print of like, okay, what are the annual percentages, and how do I navigate that with the idea that whatever has the highest interest rate, you'd want to pay that off first. And then next we're going to talk about retirement savings. So because I work with alumni, I found out that a lot of our OSU alumni were at or near retirement, and they really wanted to have information about how to prepare for retirement. So I was very fortunate to have worked with a really great alumnus who helped us by presenting a webinar to our alumni community about retirement. So I got to know a lot about this topic. And some things that stood out to me from working on this is that it's time in the market and not timing the market. So starting early is going to be the best thing that you can do for yourself. So the earlier you start, the better. And it can be as little as like $10, $20 a month. Like it can be a pretty small amount, but the earlier you start putting away money, the better. And oftentimes, especially in higher education, we have employer retirement plans, and especially if you're at a state institution, like you'll have a pretty good one in comparison to the public sector, or the private sector, I mean. And so looking at your retirement plan, and if you can contribute above what they can, or at least if you have an employer's match program, at least match them. So for example, let's say they do 6%, if you do 6%, then you'll want to make sure that you do the highest that's available and just include that in your budgeting. Another thing I learned about is health savings account, and I actually, so there's a typo here. It should say HSA and not has. So health savings accounts are typically through an employer as well, and they are a really great tool. And because I just learned about them, I just opened my first one, and I'm contributing a very small amount each month to it. So a health savings account is something that is tax-free, and it's money that can then be used for healthcare. And the way that it was explained to me is that especially as you get older, we know that there's an increase in health problems. And so it's kind of like having a retirement account but it's for healthcare needs, and it's tax-free. So anytime we can do something that prevents us from having to pay taxes in the future is a great recommended thing. The other thing about retirement is that a Roth IRA you're paying the taxes on it now, and then you're saving it, and then it's an investment account, so then it increases over time. And the benefit of doing a post-tax savings account now is that it's very likely most people make more money as they transition in their career or as they get older. And so what you're doing is you're paying within the tax bracket and the tax. And we know that mostly taxes, generally speaking, go up. And so you're paying in the current tax bracket versus the tax bracket you're going to be in the future. And so it's making some assumptions. However, based on my own research and then talking with people who teach retirement accounts and who work in like board of trustees for retirement accounts, things like that, it sounds to me like the Roth IRA is really the best way to go. So if you're able to open one up, that's the recommended thing for retirement. And as you're thinking about your general goals, when it comes to retirement, it can be hard to really wrap your head around especially like depending on where you are right now, your age and where you are in your career, it can seem very, very far away. And so I think of retirement as well as emergency savings as like you're advocating for the future you. You're having compassion and understanding for the future you. And hopefully you are healthy and you live a long and great life and that you're able to enjoy these benefits. And so you're advocating for that now, taking some losses to yourself, so like less income per month, less fund spending, etc. But you're looking out for your future self. And I think that that's something that, at least for me, that's one of my values, and I find that very important. All right, next we're going to do a values exercise. So go ahead and what I want you to do is take out those sheets of paper. So you'll have break things up into 16 small sheets, and I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to do this. And feel free to post in the discussion board if you are not able to get through it in time, and I will happily give more time. So write down on a sheet of paper. Personally, I love this exercise, and I did this one. So I presented the same workshop at the OE conference, not last year, but the year before, and people really liked this one too. So write out, so each of your little sheets, write out 4 of the most important people. So like on each sheet would be 1 person. Then 4 of the most important past or future experiences, 4 material possessions you value, and 4 of your top values. So go ahead and write those out. I'll give you, like I said, about 3 minutes to do this, but you may need less time. So please, once you're done, if you can post in the discussion board, that would be great. That way Charisse can let me know. Once a couple of you have done this, then I'll know, okay, we're ready to move on. All right, I'll give a little less than a minute to finish up. Can someone post in the discussion board where you're at with this, just so I have a sense? Charisse, are there any comments or questions about this?
Yeah, some people are still working on it. Some people have like about 5 to go. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I will wait a few minutes then.
I think we're good, Yulia.
All right, perfect. Okay, so then we're going to do something even more fun than this. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to spread those sheets out around you, and then I want you to rip up half of them. So if you were to say, this thing actually is less important to me than these other things, rip it off. So I want you to have only 8 of those things left. Go ahead and do that first. So I actually did this yesterday because I was like, I want to remember what it was like. And it was surprising. So I actually got different results than when I did it first, when I presented at the conference. The themes were very similar, but the actual results were different. And for me, I don't know, the ripping was, I think that's what makes it more like challenging. It's like you're ripping this thing up. So I think that's why I like this exercise. Like it's the physical nature of like actually having to take action to say like, no, I'm going to say no to this right now. All right, so hopefully you have 8 left now. And then I want you to rip up 4 more. So you have 8 left, and I want you to go ahead and rip up half of them. And you'll have 4 left. Lots of decisions. All right, then I want you, hopefully you're at this point now, I want you to rip off 2 of them. So you'll have 2 left. And then once you have 2, go ahead and, if a few of you can just post in the discussion board, and Trace, if you can let me know when people have said, yep, I have 2, then we'll move on to the next thing.
Folks are saying they're done, Yulia.
Okay, fantastic. So I'd love for some people to share, maybe have at least 3 people share, what was it like to rip up the important things, and were the decisions easy, and then what did you observe about your responses? And once people share theirs, I can also share what my responses were and what was that like. And actually, Charisse, are you comfortable sharing if you did this, what your results were? Or not your results, but like what it was like for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I've done this in the past, and so it was another time doing it. I found myself, I feel like a lot of the things on the paper were similar, or I could say, oh, this is similar to this one, like, if that makes sense. Like I had Peace Corps on there as an experience, and then cultural exchange and equity and all these things. And I was like, well, technically I could say that this is this. So I tried to use the more powerful word, but it's really hard. If you have people on there and taking people out early, I think that's really hard. Or if that makes sense. The people or certain things, like, yeah. So that's mine. And then Christina Luther shared.
And was it a hard thing to do, especially as you were towards the end when it was just a couple left?
Yeah, and I think for me personally, there's some, like, it's more salient based on certain recent things that have happened, right? So when certain things happen in life that, kind of make you refocus and recenter, then kind of your values might shift and realize that, like, that person or that issue is really important to you. And so that definitely changed, the last month, in fact, impacted what I chose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, the things that were left were mainly people and then the values. And then one thing that I noticed is, like, my values, for example, like love or contributing positively or engaging in things that matter, I could still, like, in my head, put the people in there as well. And so that's how I use the values with the people. Anyone on the discussion board want to share? Can you see if anyone has shared their reflection?
Yeah, so Christina Luther shared that it's easier to let the past go than the future. And some other folks said that resonated with them. And then,
oh, that's lovely. That's very wise. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And one person, Beth Lyon, shared that they just had folded paper, so there was an X them off rather than ripping them.
Ooh. I encourage you to rip, though, because there is something about that. Yeah. But I totally understand, Beth. Yeah, I understand the sentiment. Other comments?
I think that's it right now.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for doing this. I know it's not an easy thing to do an exercise via a webinar, but I wanted things to be more interactive, and I hope that you found this to be impactful and meaningful for you. And so thinking about, okay, so why would we do a values exercise as part of a financial basics thing? And I think that, I don't know if your experience was similar, but what I found is that the things, I ripped those off first without even, like, no hesitation. There was no hesitation on my part. And even some experiences, but it was my values, the people, and some other things that I had a really hard, especially, yeah, as I got to ripping up the values and people, that was the hard part for me. And so when we think about where we put our resources, where we put our time, then that is a clear statement to us about what matters to us. And if you were on the other end, maybe you did have some things that came through, or maybe some experiences that came through. Let's say like it's Peace Corps or whatever it is, then that means something about that experience really speaks to you. And so how are your financial goals aligning with supporting those very key basic things that are the most important thing to you? So I love this kind of stuff, and yeah, I could talk about this stuff all day, but we will move on. So we're going to talk about goal setting. So that is a perfect segue from learning about some basic information and reflection, and now goal setting. And especially now that you have a sense of what's most important to you, this is also a great time to think about what are some goals that you have or that you can develop that really allow you to live true to those things that matter most to you. And so goal setting, I'm sure all of you know this, but I just want to remind you, goals, it's really important that they're specific. They have a description of things that are they're actionable, measurable, achievable. They're relevant to the things that you're wanting the most, and they're time bound. So the time bound is super important. So this is why I make things like, you know, in a year I want to have this kind of, you know, this much saved up, or in 5 years I want to have this chunk of things paid off, et cetera. The time really gets you, I think it motivates you to then take action now to meet that goal. So what I want you to do next, and I'm going to give you again about 3 minutes or so to do this. So go ahead and write 3 financial goals using the SMART method, and then think about one strategy that you can use to meet that goal. So it can be anything, and you do have the Personal Finance 101 tools that you can take a look at. And there's some really great things in there. For example, like Lifehacker, NerdWallet. They're amazing for just like general things that can really boost your knowledge of things. Maybe one of your financial goals is, in the future, if you're job searching, is to actually negotiate your salary. So maybe the goal is negotiate your salary with some tactics of research financial tools that help negotiate salary. Maybe you can add in, okay, talk to Yulia when I'm ready to do that, so that I can see if she can let me know, like, am I on the right track, or give me a pep talk or whatever. So go ahead and write those in, and I'll give you some time to do that. All right, I'll give you 1 more minute to wrap that up. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Would anyone want to share either what it was like to do these financial goals or maybe an example of a goal or two that they feel comfortable sharing? And Therese, let me know if there's responses for that.
So one person said they've been tracking their expenses for years, but have never committed to a budget. I could add to that too. I've committed, like, so for the last probably 2-3 years, I've had a budget that helps me track kind of plan for everything. But I think the thing that I've struggled with is tracking the expenses to see where I did go over, which is something I've been.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been working on for the last couple months, and it's really interesting, like still being mindful, but also like I'm being honest. So I'm not just like, you know how like you can go underboard, if that makes sense. Like you're being watched, so you're more careful. And so I'm being kind of realistic right now. And it's been interesting to see where I'm spending my money. So I can definitely relate to what she said.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the things I work on too, is I'll have a budget and I'll know kind of roughly, but the actual then making sure that I am regularly actually meeting that, I feel like I have to keep reminding myself, like, okay, what was it that I committed to? Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to share theirs through the discussion board?
There's another person that said that they're categorizing some of the savings as an emergency fund. So they have the funds, but don't know how much they actually need for 3 months. So, and they're thinking about putting in a special bank account that they don't use regularly and keeping it there.
Perfect. I love that. And for emergency fund, so it's going to be your bare essentials. So you'll include things basically like rent, bills, food, if you have medical expenses. So it'll be basically anything that's not entertainment, not shopping, not anything non-critical. So that looks slightly different. That budget looks slightly different than so you're not necessarily needing to save up like your whole entire salary, 3 months worth of your whole salary. It's only the essential things. So that'll depend on like how much you're paying for rent and other things too. All right, any other comments from the discussion board?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. Well, if there's more that come in, feel free to jump right in, Therese. So thank you everyone for doing that, and I hope that you found value in actually.
Oh, wait,
I'll go ahead.
So we have one. So the purpose of the emergency fund, is it just for when you're jobless, or any advice for when it's appropriate to use it?
Yep. So it's anything that is not planned and accidental. So it could be, for example, and it's actually up to you to decide how you use it. So like in my case, the things I would use my emergency fund would be a medical expense that I didn't know I had, or like something happens medically. If I lose my job, definitely, or any kind of, like, for example, I accidentally backed our car into our garage and broke our car back window, like badly, and it was very expensive to fix. And so I ended up saying that's an emergency fund situation because it was totally unexpected and it was an accident and I didn't plan for it. So that came out of the emergency. So it can be at least that's how I view it, but it can be anything that's like basically an accident or something that's out of your control that is a must, like we needed to have the window fixed, or like if you have a medical thing like that, you need to take care of it. You don't have the option not to take care of it. But anything that's like, for example, travel, I don't use emergency funds for travel. For travel is a separate thing. And I'm one of those people where I love to, even if it's just for the weekend, like I love to go somewhere once in a while to just like get away. And so I have a separate amount that I like delegate to that kind of spending. It's a great question. Any other questions or comments out there? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your patience and doing these exercises through a virtual space. So here's a summary. I really, really encourage you to keep thinking about those goals that you set out. Always negotiate your salary. Under no circumstance should you not negotiate your salary, even if the answer is no. Don't ever say no to yourself. Let other people say no. And if the salary is not high enough for you, then you can say no to the position. But don't be the one to say no. Ask for what it is that you want. And I recommend that in all areas of your life. So don't be the one to say no to yourself. Don't undersell yourself. And it's time in the market, not timing the market for retirement. The earlier you start, the better. And starting now, today is a great day to start. So start now. And I personally have, I go through, so like my employer has their own retirement advising accounting person, and I meet with them on a yearly basis and just say, here's where I'm at, where do you think I should be? And it's a great check-in and just like lets me know like, yep, I'm on track, or nope, I'm not on track, here's what I can do to improve. And it's a really great tool. And then do look at your values, explore what are your values, what are your goals, and then how do finances fit into that? I guarantee you that most, if not all of your goals have some kind of a financial component to them, whether you're saving money or spending money. And so think about how do your values align with your goals, and then aligning with the things that you're doing financially to keep yourself going and meeting the things that you need. So thank you everyone so much. It's been really great to be here. Thank you, Cherise, for moderating the webinar. I do a lot of resume reviews, as I mentioned. So thank you for moderating the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending and for participating. I really enjoyed sharing this information with you. And anytime you want any kind of assistance, whether it be just like tips on negotiation or financial or goal setting in general, or even just career stuff, like I'm always happy, eager to talk and help. And whether you're connected to us or not, like I'd still be invested in helping you out. So reach out to me anytime. And are there any other questions or comments that people want to share before we head off? I want to make sure there's an opportunity to share if there are things.
Hi, Julia. There's one that has actually been waiting for just a little bit. So I wanted to ask it, but it was kind of about negotiation after we passed that a little bit. So what should you do if you approach your supervisor and ask to discuss a salary raise after your annual performance evaluation, but they say that the department doesn't decide this, it's all through HR?
I see. Okay. So that can be the case. So what I recommend is that you, well, first, always have the conversation anyway. Like I said, even if the answer is no, just be confident that you have the right to ask. So in some cases, that's how it is, and they don't actually give raises. So what you want to do, though, is you want to talk about your salary before the annual raise, ideally. And so before your review, you want to say, like, what is the process? I'd like to ask for a raise. Prepare a one-sheet summary outlining here's what I've done, here's the goals I've met, here's where I've grown, developed, here's how I'm contributing to the organization. So I'd like to ask for a raise. The answer can always be no, especially in education. The answer could always be no. And like for me, one of the things that actually prompted my own job search is that I said, here are the things I'm doing well, and they were quote unquote working on it, but it was taking a very long time, and I was just feeling like, well, I'm not being compensated what I need to be compensated. What I feel like my skill set, what I'm bringing and giving to them, is not being matched. Like they're not connected. They're not. There's no. It's not a fair exchange. And so for me, I said, okay, so they always have the right to say no, but I always have the right to then find something else. And so in some cases, if the pay is really significantly not covering what you think that your true worth is, then it can be in some cases prompting to find something else. But having that conversation is really important. Having the courage to ask is really important. So, and sometimes you're right, it is not in their control. The other thing you can ask about is say, okay, great. So thank you for sharing that with me. So the increases are not something that you can do. Can we talk about conferences I can attend? Can we talk about work travel I can do that would show me that you really value my work. And so sometimes they can do it that way. And so in my previous job, that's what I was able to do. So I was able to get a conference and a certificate, but I was not able to get a salary increase. And so for me, I was like, great, those other things are really fantastic, but at the end of the day, like I did need that higher salary. So then I was like, okay, I know that that's a sign to me that I need to find something different. I hope that's helpful. And if you have like, if you're going through like a specific salary negotiation thing, reach out to me. So I've helped people like analyze analyze different benefit options, different position types, like all kinds of things that can help you make an informed, smart decision. So happy to help out with that if needed. Any other questions or comments?
Well, it doesn't look like we're having any more questions yet, Yulia. I just want to thank you so much for sharing this with us. I think it's a really important topic, especially with what you shared with us at the beginning of the webinar. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Sharice. This has been really great. And good luck, everyone. And you got this.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.